Yeah, you remember the promise that he made that he was going to spend, was it 1% of his time responding to, and then 99% saying that he would do his job.
Yeah.
Now, I know what's become of us now that, you know, it's aura for aura, or, you know, giving back what you get. And that clearly the high road is no longer anything that we go by anymore. And the president saying, well, if you attack me, I will. But, you know, it's interesting that the president is beefing with a dude he fired. I mean, you fired the guy. I mean, let him go. Obviously he's bitter. Wouldn't you be bitter if you were fired and you met your former boss and you were fired in such bad circumstances?
Publicly.
I mean, look, you are the President of the Republic of Kenya, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Republic of Kenya. That dude is last week's news, huh? Let him say those things. I mean, you're arguing with that guy, that drunkard, right? Who's in the market, who's walking home from the bar at 6:30 in the morning, dirty as hell, has slept in the trenches, and you know the way they shout everything, and is shouting there. Have you ever seen any of the traders in the market responding to that guy? They leave him in the ditch.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much, guys, for your greatest support. Now, fellow Kenyans, right now we are going to agree and disagree, most probably because some people are supporting this government and some people are not supporting the government. And especially those who are not supporting the government are many more than those who are supporting the government. Now, the few that are supporting the government are insisting or wants to force other people to support the government simply because maybe they think that there is something that this government is going to give them, without bearing in mind that they're just going to be handouts here and there. Now, yesterday night, as of course, as we all know, it was Citizen TV's news gang, and we had Yvon Okwara together with her team. There are several things that they talked about, fellow Kenyans. And I told you that if there is one single day or one single night that William Ruto doesn't normally like, especially Citizen TV, is Thursday. Because he can either order SK Macharia to take these people out, because you know what happens is that these people dig deep and even say things that nobody saw. Or these guys reminds Kenyans of what the president said long time ago, the promises that he made and he has refused. Like yesterday, I had some Gituku reminding Kenyans of the promise of universities that William Ruto promised that that is going to build. But did he do that? He didn't do that. So this is what I want. This is what I want us to listen to. I want us to listen to the news gang, and then you just tell me what you think at the comment section. Of course. There is something that I want us also to. I just want to remind you. I just want to thank the Bonita Media community and family for the great work that you guys did. This is the hand of. This is the work of your hand. Let me first take this opportunity to thank you, the Bonita Media community and family, for the great work that you have done. We've really done a lot. You've really done a great job. And as I told you that today was going to mark the end of our contribution towards supporting the children, and I went there. After going there, you know, we had a chit chat with the director and all that, and then I gave what you guys gave me, and then after doing all that, I also had some little time with the kids and all that. Tulicheka na watoto kidogo hapa na pale. And then I sent them some money that I had, because you know I could not buy everything. Vitu kama nyanya, kitunguu, hizo huwezi kanunua, and some small things. So I sent the money, the remaining money that I had in my account, zenye mlitoa in my account, ili wakanunua nazo vitu watanunua. So you can just watch this. This is the work that you guys did. This is the work that you guys did.
Umeguza kila ofisi. Kila ofisi. Naona wewe ni baba. Unajua kila ofisi ni baba mzuri. Kila ofisi. Thank you so much. Kuna shukuru. Bando moja hiyo inabadilisha everything. Hiyo pamba zio inabadilisha.
Baadaye inasaidia kabisa.
Unaweza wewe sikira ni moja. Mimi nimeenda supermarket, sijui nichukue pamba gani.
Hata tuko na hizi zote, tuko na hii, tuko na ile ndogo,
Ile mtoto mdogo. Huyo
Basi ndio ilikuwa inatuletea shida. Sasa hii
tunahitaji sana. Tuko na size ile iko katikati, tuko na ile ya large.
So what wanatumia like?
Wote kuna medium na large.
Ndio sana nikitafuta. Kuja na hiyo. Naangalia size zote.
Na nakwambia tunakula pamba, tunapenda hii hadi malizi.
Hiyo kidogo imeenda pia. Amazing at least kama kuna kitu sawa.
Yeah, really can go.
Acha niteketeke na ni mingi kila mtu anapata sawa sawa. Hai. Mzaya kwa wapi? Mzaya. Kila mtu anapata? Kila mtu anapata, sawa? Hakuna mwenye atakosa. Na kama utakosa unaniambia umekosa na nakupea, sawa sawa? Shika. Nikishakupea unakaa chini. Sawa? Ambia uyachukue.
So, fellow Kenyans, that is what you did, guys, and I just want to humbly request you again that there is a request that those guys made. They wanatamani kupakwe rangi, wanatamani rangi ipakwe some places because walisema kwamba government itakuja inspection, and then wakikuja inspection wataulizwa mambo kwa nini ni kuchafu and all that. So they were requesting if at all at least we can help them. They were very happy and they were requesting if we can help them to kupaka tu hizo rangi, it will be good. So I'm just requesting you guys that you can still use the number on the screen so that at least we can help them. Tumalizane nao kabisa to make the children comfortable and happy at the same time. So let's listen to the news gang and then you tell me what you think at the comment section.
What does it take to resign in Kenya? In Canada, a man can lose his job for not speaking the right language at the right time. Not for causing a tragedy, not for mismanaging a crisis, but for failing to address a nation in both of its official languages. That's English and French. That is what confronted Michael Ruto, the CEO, or shall I say former CEO of Air Canada, after a national moment demanded national communication, but he fell short. Because you see, in Canada, language is not a courtesy. It's not a matter of preference. It is law. It is identity. It is a constitutional obligation anchored in the Official Languages Act. And when you fail to meet that obligation, even symbolically, there are consequences, real ones. But let's not romanticize Canada. Its bilingualism was not born out of politeness or progressive instinct. It was forged in conflict, in conquest, in the uneasy coexistence of two founding cultures, that's English and French, after the 7 Years' War. It was a political compromise, later reinforced during moments of real anxiety, that the country could fracture along linguistic lines. In other words, Canada takes language seriously because it has had to, because it understands from experience what happens when identity is mishandled. Now pause there for a moment and consider Kenya, a country with its own constitution, its own declared values, its own hard-earned lessons written in blood and memory. The Constitution of Kenya 2010 is clear. Kiswahili and English are the official languages of the Republic. Not optional, not situational, not dependent on the crowd you're addressing. But yet, on national platforms, in rallies that are carried live across the country, leaders routinely abandon that obligation. They slip, not slip, but lean into ethnic languages, not to include, but to exclude, not to unify, but to signal allegiance, to draw the line, however subtly, between us and them. Now, let's not pretend that this is harmless. We're not a country guessing at the dangers of ethnic mobilization. We have lived it. We have buried its victims. We have rebuilt from its ashes. The 2007-2008 post-election violence was not an accident of history. It was the consequence of political choices, of rhetoric, of division, of leaders who understood exactly what they were doing. And still, nearly 2 decades later, the playbook remains in use. So again, the question, what does it take to resign in Kenya? Because it certainly isn't scandal. I mean, not the billions questioned in the Aror Kimore Dam scandal, not the outrage that followed the NYS corruption scandal, not the countless other inquiries, audits, and headlines that flare up and then fade away, usually without consequence. In fact, resignation here often feels like an alien concept, a foreign practice, something other democracies do. No, we don't do that here. Here, the script is different. Deny, deflect, politicize, survive. And if necessary, retreat into the comfort of ethnic solidarity. Speak to your base in their language and ride out the storm. Which is what makes the Canadian example so jarring, because it tells us that in some systems, the small things are not small at all. That symbolism matters, that constitutional principles are not decorative, they are enforced, expected, and lived. That leadership is not just about avoiding catastrophe, but about embodying the values that hold a country together. You see, in Kenya, we often speak of unity as an aspiration, a goal, and sometimes a seasonal message that's rolled out on public holidays and moments of crisis. But folks, unity is not built only on Madaraka Day or Jamhuri Day. It is built on choices, on whether a leader standing on a national stage chooses to speak in a language that includes every Kenyan or one that draws a boundary, in whether the Constitution is treated as a binding document or a convenient reference, in whether accountability is real or rhetorical. Because if failing to honor something as fundamental as a nation's official languages cannot even trigger a conversation here, let alone consequences, then we must ask ourselves honestly, what exactly still shocks us? And perhaps more dangerously, what have we quietly decided to tolerate? That's my take tonight.
On my memo tonight, there's a word dominating our political conversations lately. Zoning, meaning who contests where, who steps aside for who, and which party gets which region. This is being witnessed in predominantly Nyanza areas and centers around the parties in their broad-based arrangement, UDA and ODM. And as the push and pull between these two parties over zoning intensifies, one question that keeps coming to mind is this: can democracy be zoned? But before we go too far, let us take you back in history, shall we? Because zoning was once a very bad word in Kenyan multi-party politics. It takes us back to the days before multi-party democracy, when KANU, then accustomed to ruling alone, introduced what came to be known as KANU zones, areas where opposition candidates were effectively locked out. The message then was simple: hapa si pahali pa ushindani. So ridiculous was that drive to create political zones that one politician, Wilson Leitich, who purported to control the Nakuru KANU zone, famously declared that anybody who flashed the two-finger salute would have one finger cut off. That is the history this word brings back. Which is why one must ask, in a multi-party era, why would any political party fear competition? Should it simply be, as someone once said, tukutane kwa tepe? Because democracy is supposed to be about choice, allowing wananchi to decide who leads them, and not politicians in boardroom deciding in advance who gets which seat, and not party elites dividing up the country like a chessboard. And perhaps that is where the discomfort lies. What exactly is the difference between zoning and tribalism? Because once you begin saying this region belongs to this party and that region belongs to another, what are you really saying? Are we not confirming that ODM is a Luo party and UDA a Kalenjin one? And if an ODM MCA is elected in Nandi, does he suddenly become a Luo? Or if a UDA MCA is elected in Nyakach, does he become a Kalenjin? Tuache hizo. Because the danger here is that zoning may simply be repackaging ethnic politics in coalition language, a more polite term for political tribalism, and that should worry us. Because multi-party democracy was fought for precisely so that every party, every candidate, and every voter would have the right to compete and choose freely. So if leaders are truly confident in their support, why fear an open contest? Why fear the people deciding? Democracy cannot be zoned. Watu wakutane debeni, wapambane hadharani.
Over the last 1 month, President William Ruto has pledged close to 2 billion shillings to build 2 universities. One in Emurua constituency in Narok County, and another in Olkalau to be the Nyandarua University. Each of the announcements was made at a funeral of the local Member of Parliament and, as expected, received with great appreciation by mourners. In the Nyandarua case, the President began with a 20 million declaration to buy land for the university, and then another 100 million shillings was offered.
Hiyo milioni 100 mimi nataka shule ya Salient, wale waliotusaidia mahali pao ndio iwe university, wachukue milioni 20, milioni 80, mimi napanga tukuje tuanzishe university tuition block hapo.
Then came a 350 million promise.
Vile vile tumewapatia pesa ya kwanza milioni 350 ya kuanzisha ujenzi wa university, kujenga hostels.
And then the sum total.
Na nimewapatia watu wa Nyandarua shilingi bilioni 1 ya kuendesha university ya Nyandarua. Yes.
Now, a month ago, President Ruto told the Murwadi Kir constituents of his plans for them.
Takutafutia milioni 20 utafute shamba ya kujenga university ambayo itatosha. Tafadhali panga in the next 2-3 weeks iwe imekamilika.
Then he announced that the Housing and Urban Development Principal Secretary had been instructed to build a university.
Inga hayuko. Nishamwambia tayari ya kwamba tutatoa pesa ya serikali shilingi milioni 750 ya kuanzisha hiyo university na kujenga hostels ya watoto katika hiyo university.
Indeed, it is commendable to expand access to education across the country. But there are contextual issues to consider. Today, there are 84 universities and institutions of higher learning that offer degree programs. 36 of them are public universities. There are 7 public university constituent colleges. These institutions are distributed across 34 counties. There are 32 private universities, majority of them situated in Nairobi. Now, most universities, especially the public ones, carry in their name, quote, University of Science and Technology. Yet, most of them offer art-based programs. Over the last 3 years, we have been told that most of public universities were or are insolvent. This reported reality was the basis of a new university funding model to save the institutions that were facing collapse. Well, there is no evidence to show that the said institutions are now back to good financial standing. In fact, some of the oldest universities are struggling with debts and bloated staff. Some have even attempted to declare staff redundancies, but stopped by the courts. You know why? Because they owe hundreds of millions to staff and suppliers. And here we are committing billions for brick and mortar for future universities with no budgets on how they will be run. Because universities need facilities beyond lecture halls. They need academic staff, researchers, science laboratories and equipment. Universities are more useful when research leads to informed decisions in the society. And yes, it may feel good to be the member of parliament who brought a university to your village. But when an institution is built just to satisfy a political aspiration, hoping to convert the influence into votes next time IBC calls, where is the sense of planning? Do we actually have a university access problem? When the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service, CUPS, declares first-year slots that are more than the qualifying candidates, do we really have a gap? And at a time that CBE learners are anxious about their transition to university education, based on the reality that most universities are yet to align with the CBE philosophy, is brick and mortar the more important investment? And we hear that there are plans to establish more universities in the coming months. And yes, there are 47 counties. But surely there doesn't have to be 47 public universities just for the sake of political feel-good. Universities serve a higher purpose. They are centers of excellence in specific disciplines. To be sure, have we actually thought about it? Now, these are many questions, but I guess the sense is in the answers they evoke.
No, Yvon, before I come to the brawl, there's something that I need to say, and I think it's important that we remember what this event was. Ilikuwa ya mazishi. And so, how was the family of the late MP feeling? Hosting not a funeral or a service or a memorial for their departed loved one, but the biggest political fight that Capitol Grounds in Nyandarua had seen. And it makes me wonder, what is this culture we are having in this country where funerals are being turned into full-throttle political events or contests? You talked about Rumble in the Jungle, about Kinshasa in your intro, Yvon. So are we sure as Kenyans that it is okay to make coffins tools of political mobilization? Like picha imewekwa pale yule mtu ambaye ameaga dunia, ama sanduku inawekwa pale, kisha mwanasiasa anasimama, unasema pole kwa familia, hujamaliza, straight into a political battle or political brawl. I think this culture is unbecoming, and I think in future, maybe the dead will have to be hidden from politicians if you want them to be respected. because that was not respect for the departed Member of Parliament and his family. It's important. Yvon, why are you looking at me like that? Kizungu. Number 2.
The dead will have to be what now?
Will have to be hidden from politicians if you want them to be respected. Because respect inasauliwa kwa mazishi, Yvon.
But Jamila, this is what we do.
It's wrong. CS Opiyo Wandayi did not appear before the Parliamentary Committee, the National Assembly Energy Committee. He was supposed to appear before it to explain about the circumstances of why we found ourselves where we are right now, just to give clarity, because there have been a lot of questions. He has not appeared before the committee. In fact, there was an apology letter that was signed by the Principal Secretary of the State Department for Energy, Alex Wachira, that was presented before the National Committee, saying that he was off of the country on official duty and that he'll appear when he comes back. But then now, this seems like some instances, anahepa kujibu maswali. We'll talk a bit more about what was in what letter, what was in what meeting, who knew what, from what Sam Gituku will tell us. But then now, other than CS Wandayi, who was supposed to appear before the committee today, representatives from EPRA, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, the Kenya Pipeline Company, and the Kenya Revenue Authority also, who was summoned together with the Energy CS, did not appear before this committee. Is it kukosea committee heshima? Or is it that they want to answer questions? Because it does not make sense that no one appeared before this committee. And this committee, ina mamlaka, ina majukumu, it has the right, it has the responsibility of asking questions over issues that affect wananchi, including mafuta ambayo yameletwa nchini, maswali yanaibuka. And then now, remember a week ago, former Petroleum Principal Secretary Mohamed Liban will talk more about that, former Kenya Pipeline MD Joe Sang, and former EPRA Director General Daniel Kipto. Tunawaita former, because they all apparently resigned a day after they were arrested.
While in custody.
While in custody. And I think it is interesting to note at this point that the ODPP is yet to prefer charges against its suspects, who are reportedly released on police bond. And Monica, I think you need to start getting ready sound bites from wananchi who are starting to feel the pinch, or who are being affected by uhaba wa mafuta. Because the government had said several times that we have sufficient stocks in the country, but the motorists and border operators, especially in the countryside, are stranded. They are facing dry pumps in most stations. They are facing queues. I think we did a spot check in different parts of the country, from Kisii to Transmara. No fuel. What does this mean? It's crippling transport in the area. It's crippling business in the area. Long queues in the few stations that actually had mafuta. Let's listen to what PSV drivers and border operators are talking about. There being no enough fuel, and they want the government to come clean on exactly how much stock we have.
The former deputy president spoke about ile pombe ya kuua watu imerudi. And I hear you talking about
the drunkard.
Pombe, the drunkard guy in the market. I also hear what Jamila is saying here about people making it about themselves. You're there to condole the family that has lost, to honor the memory of the person who is departed. But remember, this is what they have done. All of them, the political class, when they go to church on Sunday, it's not about the sermon from the preacher of the day. It is about what they are going to say to respond to the latest insults, never mind it is in the church, and to issue also a few threats. When they go to school events to mark anniversaries or whatever else they are marking, they make it about themselves, to talk about how well they are doing and how their naysayers not doing it. But also, it is unfortunate that what you have expected to be an opportunity to honor people, if it's in church, an opportunity, if you must go to that church, because I think here on the show you have said before that people should go to their own churches, go have a conversation with your pastor. It is a journey, it is a relationship. A church is meant to take you to heaven. Any religion is meant to take you to heaven, not to take you to the next election, as you may so wish. But at the same time, remember, we keep saying that the best president that ever lived in this country in terms of performance and delivery was President Mwai Kibaki. How many people heard of President Mwai Kibaki going to funerals and speaking the way we are seeing the current leaders today speak? And it's not to say that he didn't attend funerals. He did. but he chose what to say, how to remember. I remember several funerals that when he was president, whether it's the funeral for the late John Mishuki, there's the funeral of the late, Ruto Gachagua, who was the governor of Nyeri County, and how he spoke, in as much as you may want to talk about that speech there was nothing about who is in office and who is beating who is better than who. There's no comparison of performance or even talking about leaders that are insulting others and saying that they are children, you shouldn't send them to us. So really this is quite a downgrade when it comes to management of our politics, and I think Kenyans should be able to watch. At the same time, you must have had the reactions from the audiences. There's some cheers, there's some, you don't know what it is, but also indicates a situation where political leaders continue to hire crowds, even at funerals. I don't know how much it was this time round, but there's a continued habit in this country, not just at funerals, but also in political rallies, that you find people are hiring their crowds so that they can cheer them. You go to a meeting, let's say you have 5 stops. So the first stop, the crowd arrives before you. It's advanced statement. They're very happy to see you. Then, as you continue to finish, then they must be moved very quickly to the next stop so that they also receive you, because we need pictures, we need drone shots, we need excerpts to put on social media, whether it's on TikTok, whatever it is. So surely, so how then does it help? How did those speeches yesterday resolve the problems of the people of Olkalau?
They hire crowds. Don't forget, they also hire goons. Huh?
Oh, yeah.
So those two go hand in hand. I don't know if the crowds are goons or if that's a separate contract or if it's 2 separate groups of people.